Okay, well, welcome everybody to this SGE and all things AI webinar. We have here again the one and only Lily Ray. Lily, thanks for coming again to our webinar or fireside chat. It's always a pleasure having you here, and there's so much going on in the SEO content industry that and search industry that I think a lot of our people in our audience are very eager to hear some of your thoughts around everything that is going on. So for those of you that don't know Lily, she is the director of SEO at AMSIP Digital, one of the top digital marketing agencies in North America. So we are very lucky to have Lily here. And just quick housekeeping, please engage in the chat, send us your questions. I'll make sure that we ask those questions throughout our talk. So welcome, Lily. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. Looking forward to our chat today.
Awesome. So, well, let's start with kind of setting the context for a lot of people. I know our audience is highly educated in all things SEO, but just for their benefit, what exactly is SGE? Can you give us a little bit rundown and from your point of view, what is it?
So it stands for Search Generative Experience, and it's a new Google product that's not live yet. It's still being tested, but it's Google's probably potentially the biggest change we've seen to search. Again, it's not live yet, but it's Google's take on using generative AI to basically answer questions that people are searching for using the resources that Google has at its disposal, namely the websites that it indexes in organic search to help answer the question. So it's essentially looking across various different sites for the answer and then using generative AI to come up with basically one answer to the question. It does take up quite a bit of the screen once it loads. So it's a pretty big UX and UI change to how people will search. And it comes with a lot of implications for how traffic will flow, on and off of Google. So it's an exciting time, but it's definitely a lot of unanswered questions in the SEO space for sure.
Yeah, and I know you have lots of thoughts around SGE because I've been following you closely in Twitter and LinkedIn, and you have been very vocal about your opinion. So I'm going to park the opinions just for a second there to give people even further context, because there is BARD and there's SGE. So how are these two different? And I know you told me you haven't used BARD a lot, but do you know how they're different? Can we explain to the audience what is the difference between one and the other?
Yeah, sure. And again, I have used BARD. The thing is now there's several tools that kind of do the same thing. So I think we kind of fall into a habit of using whichever one we prefer. I think a lot of people are using ChatGPT. A lot of people are using Claude now. So BARD is cool. It does a lot of really cool and exciting things, but it's just, I've had some trouble with it in terms of the accuracy of its answers. But anyway, the difference between BARD and SGE, I would call BARD Google's take on ChatGPT. So it's a new product. It's a place that you can go to do all kinds of really cool, interesting things with AI. I know they're continuing to innovate how you can use BARD and how it's going to be integrated with other Google products. So that's very exciting. I think we're going in a direction where these products will start to become so integrated that we'll be able to use AI across all kinds of different products that we use, like our mail and our calendars and communication and things like this. So that's exciting. But yeah, BARD is a website that you go to and you can kind of play with BARD and ask it all kinds of questions about things, have it create help you analyze text or come up with summaries or do grammar and spelling checks, things like this. And there's all kinds of advanced ways to use it. SGE is slightly different. It doesn't really act as a personal assistant just yet. I don't know if that's Google's goal at all in the future, but it's more of a conversational kind of response to your query directly in the search results.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that BARD is more like ChatGPT, like your AI assistant for all things generative AI, whereas SGE is just a search experience, right? It's in the name, but so you would use SGE if you want to search and have AI generate results, and then you would use BARD if you just want to do some other things akin to what you would do with ChatGPT. Did I capture
Yeah.
it? Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Okay, now let's get into the exciting part, which is what is your take, your initial take on SGE? I know it's experimental, but it's been now a few months out, and you have lots of things to say. So why don't you give us some of your take at this point, or where SGE is in terms of, is it better, is it worse, what is the impact, all those things, and then we'll take the conversation from there.
Sure, yeah. And it's very important to caveat these conversations by saying, again, it's still being tested. I'm lucky in the sense that I'm one of, I don't know how many thousands of people have early access to it. You can sign up for Google Labs. I'm not sure if it's in other countries yet, but it's at least here in the US. And, if you're approved, you can kind of just test it and submit feedback and everything like that. So my experience now is that, like, whenever I'm logged into Google here in the US, it gets triggered with almost every search query. So I see it a lot because, as you can imagine, we all use Google quite a bit every day. So that's one of the reasons why I have so many opinions about it, because it's hard to look away in many cases. It's just like, I'm always curious what it's saying. But so it's being tested. It's not done yet. As with all things search and Google and tech, it'll obviously get better over time. Right now, they're refining it and improving it in so many different ways. That being said, I still, to this day, I've had access to it for maybe 3 months or so, 2 or 3 months. I still, to this day, don't see it being a significant improvement to what we had before. I think that Google has so many different interesting and helpful search features, search engine result page features, namely top stories, featured snippets, Google Maps. These are products that Google has been working on for a very long time and that provide generally helpful answers. SGE is kind of like, it combines some of these features together in interesting ways that sometimes, sure, are like interesting and helpful, but in many cases, it's very redundant from what we already had. So and worse off in a sense for publishers and for SEOs and everything like that, because the attribution is worse than what we had before. So with featured snippets, if Google pulls a quote directly from your site, this was already very controversial. Taking a quote from your site with a link to your site did result in a lot of sites losing traffic, depending on the query, depending on the featured snippet. But with SGE, it's even less obvious where Google got the quote from. And it often kind of pulls quotes together from different sites. So there's all kinds of implications there, just in terms of how and whether people will click on these links, if people know where they're getting their information from. But generally speaking, I think not only is it not of significant improvement to what we've already had on Google, I think that there's so many examples of it getting things slightly wrong, or maybe 10% of the answer is just a little off. And my concern is maybe most people won't notice that. And then now we have 8 billion searches a day on Google. 10% of that is slightly off. It's just problematic to me. I don't know how they're going to fix that in a short amount of time.
Yeah, no, and I know, again, you're being very, very vocal about that. I love your comment. Google or Alphabet's earning call that Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, came out saying that they think is an improvement in quality experience. So, I can see you rolling your eyes.
Yeah,
I don't know. So what is Google saying? Because one thing that I love about you, that you're so influential in the industry, that you make a tweet and Google responds directly to your tweet. So I don't have that kind of pull, but you do. What is Google saying to all these things? Because you're being very vocal in the socials.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, should I hold myself back? I'm like, no, this is what I do. I share my thoughts. And I think it's helpful. I think that if someone has to say something. So I was a bit alarmed to hear that Sundar said that this is what did he say? It was something of it being a net positive so far. The feedback is good so far, and they're excited about it. I was like, he must not be reading what we've been saying in the SEO community. Obviously, we're a little bit biased because we don't like big changes like this, but I just thought I kind of thought it was a unanimous experience that we're all having, where it's this thing is kind of silly. you know, like I've seen very few posts from anyone about how great it is. And like, maybe that's to be expected. It's still being tested, but, and to be fair, there are many examples where it's cool, like, good, you got that right. That's helpful. But for me personally, I would say that's like 20 or 30% of the time that I feel that way. So I'm kind of surprised that he said that, but of course, you know, that's what you say to your shareholders. Why, how could you not? So yeah, it's a little troubling.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things to dive in your thoughts about misinformation and getting all these wrong and the experience. And I agree with you that I rarely see anybody saying, "Oh, this is awesome," right? But having said that, what I realize is that people that are not in the industry, so people are not, too deep in SEO or very sophisticated in the world of search, it looks awesome because it's this thing that, they haven't tried before. And the thing with generative AI is so coherent and so confident about its coherence that it's very convincing. That's the troubling thing. And when you say there's 8 billion searches and 10% of them are wrong, that is really alarming, right? Because a lot of people are getting fooled, unfortunately.
That's been my greatest issue and concern about these tools in general. Some people misinterpret my posts and my things that I share as me just like carte blanche being like anti-AI, which is completely not true. I actually use these tools pretty like significantly in my work nowadays. I use ChatGPT and Claude and things like this pretty frequently. And I think SGE is like a really cool innovation. It's just that the problem is you don't know how wrong it is. Like by definition, if you're asking it a question, especially about something where you're not the expert, it doesn't tell you this answer was made with a 67% confidence score. So it always sounds super confident. And like, it's actually really funny because you'll ask it relationship advice and it'll just give you relationship advice. And it's like, combining all these different things from different places. And it just comes up with this silly thing that makes no sense. It is not consistent. And it's like, why am I taking relationship advice from AI? Like this, there's a reason that people like other people. So yeah, I think it's again, there's use cases for it that are really cool and interesting, but they're using it so aggressively. And when they announced it at Google I/O that this was going to be a thing, they actually told us there's going to be a number of categories and topics where we don't use generative AI. They gave us the example of like certain your money or your life topics. So things like financial advice, legal advice, healthcare. Lo and behold, the beta version of SGE gives answers on all those topics, like all the time. And it'll say, this is not legal advice, but then it'll give like a ton of legal information. I'm like, they're just going for it. So
yeah, it's like asking your friend that has never been in a successful relationship for relationship advice, and they come all confident to tell you all the things that you should do, but they have zero experience on it.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that. Yeah.
Do you think that this is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction from Google trying to be left behind by ChatGPT and Bing when they came out so strong at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I do. It's always one of these things where I'm like, listen, I have friends at Google. I think Google's great. I think they do a lot of things that are super great. Their communications team is pretty awesome, generally speaking, but it's like, yeah, I do think that. It's pretty clear, like I think that OpenAI threw everybody for a curveball at the beginning of this year. I don't think anybody could have anticipated that would happen. And ChatGPT and OpenAI and what they're up to is for sure the biggest threat we've seen to Google, I think. I mean, TikTok is also a big one, but I think that this is bigger just because, you can completely move off Google in theory. Like now you can really just kind of like go directly to some of these AI tools. You don't really need Google. Maybe you still need it for Google Maps and things like this, but no one's ever challenged like the entire nature of the search engine before like this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also agree that Google deserves some love as well, because I think that they've done amazing things and I have a lot of respect for them. So I think the problem is that they've set their own bar so high that anything that come up that is even just slightly below average, we're so disappointed because,
Exactly.
they're victims of their own success. So to be fair, they still do amazing things. and they have these all this brain power. And I'm sure they're probably working very hard to improve all these things, but they might have come up with a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, not well thought out product. So hopefully they listen. I know they listen to you for sure, but they listen to the rest of the crowd and they make some changes. One of the things that are problematic in terms of what SGE is doing is attribution and IP. I don't know what I call it, infringement, but like, let's say IP attribution, right? So they're just blatantly taking information from other people and just treating it as their own, right? So a lot of publishers, or really anybody creating any content or original content, are worried about, okay, what is this going to go? Why would people even be motivated to create original content? Is it going to be, taken from somebody else and not given any credit? So what are your thoughts on that? Or are you seeing anything, or is Google saying anything about that attribution?
Yeah, I would say that's like top 3, maybe number 1, like issue that I have with it. I don't think the way that they currently set up SGE is fair to publishers. To backtrack a little bit, in the beginning of the year, they showed some mock-ups of how SGE might look. And at that point, it seemed like there weren't going to be any links, similar to the way that ChatGPT kind of operates without adding links unless you like ask it to, or you use the browser plugin or whatever. It looked like they were going to do that. So gratefully, like, it's not that, like it's not just text that's completely plagiarized without attribution, but it is not as good as what Bing is doing. So Bing to me is the standard, Bing Chat, their new product, of like what this can look like. And Bing's chatbot came out first, and it came out with links built in. Like every sentence has an annotation that takes you to the source of where they got that information from. Plus, at the bottom, they have, links from where they pulled the answers. They also will often like pull up other features in Bing Chat and allow you to kind of like go to different sources. It feels more like reading a term paper, like, when we're kids and they taught us how to correctly cite sources when we're writing essays. That's what Bing feels like. So for Google to launch something that doesn't do that, and then to tell us, oh, but there are links there, they're just kind of hidden in the upper right. And then if you do click this tiny little button on the upper right, you can see directly where each source came from. No one's going to click that except SEOs. And it's just not clear where the information, it's not clear enough where the information is coming from. Beyond that, there's all kinds of SGE answers that are just a really poor user experience because they don't have links, in my opinion. So if you say, what are the 10 best running shoes for women in 2023? SGE will give you a bulleted list of the 10 best running shoes and why. None of them are links. And it's like, do you expect the user to copy paste the product name and do a new Google search? Because that's completely like the opposite of how your product has worked for 20 years, right? It's like, so I just, aside from the SEO implications, I'm like, isn't this a bad user experience across the board?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I also recall whether it was a tweet or a LinkedIn post that you made about the results not really matching the intent. So you were asking about something that gives you all this long essay, and maybe it was navigational, it was also transactional. Instead of giving you giving you the right link to go, it's giving you this treaty about what is it. So
Virgin Airlines, that was the other night.
Yeah,
I was like, I literally, like, we all just naturally use Google as a navigational tool. Like, I think Google is the homepage of the internet. That's the slogan that it's had for 15 years and more. And then you go to Google and you type Virgin Airlines, and you're so used to just getting the Virgin Airlines website. Like, that's such a natural behavior that so many billions of people have at this point. And then it gives this SGE answer that Virgin Airlines was started in this year. It has this many employees. The headquarters is here. It does everything in the world except, guess what? Give you a link to their website. And it takes up the entire first page. I'm like, you're just in the way at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like now you're just like creating a worse off user experience than what I had before.
Yeah, like just give me the answer, please. I don't need to know when was Virgin founded and why. No, I
Right.
And they have been doing such a great job with semantic search and all this stuff to really give you what you're looking for. And now they're reversing that. So I still giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're now still tinkering with this, and it will get better. But yeah, still it's pretty poor experience. So now let's go back to your comment about Bing, because Bing came out strong, seemed to be doing all the right things. It still is like, after a month or so, is like, Bing who? You know what I mean? So they came out and everybody was super excited, and now everybody's focused on the next thing, SGE. So it's my impression that everybody kind of, oh yeah, Bing is cool now. It was shiny toy, and now let's move onto a different toy. So I don't know if they're gaining the traction, but you have way more data than I do, because this is your world. So what are your thoughts on Bing's adoption?
Last I checked, it didn't have any impact on their share of voice. A very negligible impact. So people haven't switched their behavior. I know that Bing is trying to, and Microsoft is trying to like make this a default, like product across different Microsoft products. We're going to have Copilot and things like this, and it's built into Edge, and Edge is default on certain computers. I just got a new PC, and it's absolutely trying to force me to use Edge and Bing and everything like this. So I'm actually like kind of invested. Like, I hope more people use Bing Chat because I think it's a better product, but it doesn't seem to be the case that the market share has changed very much, especially outside the US. That's been the struggle of Bing since Bing's inception, unfortunately. So I think it'd be exciting if we saw a little bit of the market share shift there, and I'm kind of rooting for that to happen. But I don't know if the average person outside of the search and marketing world and tech world knows that Bing Chat is a thing or cares. So I think that some heavy advertising and marketing would be needed to actually change people's behavior. But, let's say like the SGE gets launched to the public in some version of what it looks like right now, and Bing Chat continues to be like, we know how to cite our publishers and cite our sources. Like, I have to imagine within a year there would be some type of scandal, like with publishers. There's already major problems with the government. There's a reason why Google's tools aren't live all around the world and in Europe and things like this. So it's just hard to say what's going to happen. But I hope that our community and publishers keep putting pressure on Google to make it more clear how they're getting their information, because it's just not fair otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of sad, and I secretly kind of root for Bing, and I wish it was a little bit more popular, because good competition is also healthy for the market and healthy for the user. So if Bing starts really challenging Google, they're going to have to up their game. But because it hasn't been adopted so much, I think they're still kind of probably not to worry. And I cannot speak on their behalf, but that's kind of my reading the situation from my end. On the publisher side, you said there's going to be some scandal, but you also made a comment recently about the publishers have been hit so much, like almost a lose-lose, because they've been hit with all the updates, and then the reviews updates, and now the search SGE is not attributed. So if you're a publisher, like, you've been hit, and also CPMs, let's not forget that CPMs are down like 30 to 40% since last year. So we work with many publishers, and they've been struggling because of all those things all at once. So when you work with publishers, what's your take on that situation? Because they seem to be in a very tough spot, and you must be wondering as a publisher, okay, what to do next if Google's not going to pick up or going to attribute the content to us or send links. So why would we even create any content for search? So I don't know, what is your take on the whole publisher side of things?
Yeah, it's very frustrating for them. And I think like our team, we partner heavily with a number of publisher clients. This is definitely one area that we've been leaning into in the past few years. We're very focused on news SEO and helping publishers. And most recently, we offer just pure like Google Discover audits. So we've been doing a lot of that recently. I do think that Google Discover is actually an answer to your question as it stands. This does continue and prove itself to be a relatively new source of organic traffic for publishers. Google Discover was created in 2018, so not entirely new, but it's becoming clear for many sites that like there's actually a lot of publisher sites out there right now that get 95% of their Google organic traffic from Discover and 5% from search. And we've been working with some of these companies because they're like, this is the only way for us to get organic traffic anymore, it's a slightly different, it's a completely different product, but it's still free traffic, right? So you have to know how to optimize for it. That's one thing. Google is launching other products and features. Like there's Google Perspectives, which I think we'll talk about. There's, of course, video. Video's probably a really great place for publishers to tap more into. Short videos, even like this week with the Alphabet conference, that Sundar from Google said, like, we're also going to be leaning into more like short videos and reels and things like this. So I guess just like diversifying and not expecting any level of consistent organic traffic from Google over time. Unfortunately, it's not reliable for most publishers, but you still want to be doing things right. You want to be in it for the long game. With SEO, you just have to keep chipping away at the right things, because sometimes there can be a core update where your site sees 80% increases overnight. And if you're doing things right, that can happen, right? So you have to keep playing the long game, but also understand products like Google Discover and Google News Showcase and Google News and things like this. Just kind of making sure that you're checking all the boxes across different Google products.
Yeah, so I want to double click on Google Discover for a second. I gotta admit, I'm not very literate on Google Discover, and we have people that we work with that are heavy on Discover. One particular client comes to mind, and they were getting 99% of their traffic from Google Discover, but their content was content that lent itself to be very newsworthy and very viral. So
Yep.
they were talking about celebrities and certain particular franchise of movies. That there was, you have your fan base. So when I talked to the owner of this site, he said anything that has we create content that has a passion attached to it. So maybe politics or fandom stuff. But there's people that are focused on content that is not probably as malleable for Google Discover. So I would like to learn more from you. Like, what are the best practices to leverage Google Discover?
Yeah, it's a huge question. And one thing there's a few important things to understand. Not every site is going to appear in Discover, no matter what you do. It's just sometimes it's not the nature of your website. You don't produce the type of content or have the type of website that lends itself to Discover traffic. With that being said, maybe you'll have one day where you get 100,000 clicks from there and then never again. That's also possible. Also, on that note, even if you're getting, let's say, 1 million clicks in Discover every day, because that's also possible, it doesn't guarantee that you'll continue to see that traffic for 6 months or 12 months or anything. You can literally lose it overnight. Can and does happen all the time. So as long as people understand those are the rules of the game, you know what I mean? Like with SEO, it's unusual that you're going to lose all your traffic overnight unless something severely goes wrong with your website or there's a terrible algorithm update that's targeting sites like yours. But generally speaking, that doesn't happen, right? If you're doing things right. With Discover, it can happen even if you're doing everything right. So it's just important to understand that. Beyond that, like what you were saying, if you see things are working for you there, that's when you can start to dig through the data and figure out what's happening here. A lot of the times you can see patterns of what's working. And EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust, Google says it's very important for Discover, but what I think they mean by that, I don't think they mean it the same way that they mean it for, like, in order to rank for health keywords, you should be an authoritative health website. I don't think that's what they mean for Discover. They'll probably argue with me on that. But what I think that it means for Discover is that if you are a website that has focused a lot on horoscopes, and maybe you have like a famous astrologist who writes content for you or something, you're going to do well in Discover for horoscope content. Like that's where you're authoritative. So look at like what types of articles you're writing that are doing well there and see if there's a cadence that you can continue to like churn out similar articles, because it's all about timeliness. You can go back in and update things as well, but like generally speaking, you're not going to have a 7-year-old article like appear new again in Google Discover. So it's about recency, it's about trendiness, but it's also really about understanding where you're an authority. And 1200 pixel images or greater in width are required for Google Discover pages. And that's even if you put it in your structured data or your OG tag. So that's like a real technical requirement.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that. So I just learned something new. Thank you, Lily, for that tactical piece on Google Discovery. So what you're saying is, so Google Discovery traffic might be very volatile and not as
Yes.
sticky and long-term as normal organic traffic on search. And there is also authoritativeness, but not in the same way that it is for search, and it's all trendiness and recency. So I agree with that based on my little knowledge of Discover. But you also said before that for SEOs, given all that's going on, and for publishers in particular, is about diversifying their channels, including video, which I think is huge. And I want to dive into that as well. But you also briefly mentioned perspectives. And I'm one of the opinion that perspective is this little known feature that hasn't had a lot of noise in it, but might be a huge thing in the future. And the reason why I think that way is because it seems to be like authority, or no, the weight of the content is going to the creators and to the authors more, and especially in a world where everything is now going to become created by AI. That's assumption. So authorship and creators seem to be more important. So perspectives could be this one channel that people could leverage. So I want to hear your thoughts on your initial thoughts on perspectives.
Yeah. So first of all, Google kind of fumbled the announcement of perspectives, I think, a little bit, only because they named two products perspectives. They're actually not the same thing. So you might see in your search results, and you've probably maybe seen this for like 6 months, when you search for something that's like a news story, celebrity death, something like this, you'll probably get top stories. And under that, you might get a carousel called perspectives. And that's been there for a while. And that's a way for Google to show different perspectives on like news topics and things like this. So that's one definition of Google Perspectives. Then during the keynote, they said we have a new perspectives filter that we're going to be rolling out, which rolled out about 6 weeks ago. And I think it might still be a test. Like, I don't know that we're seeing it consistently, or maybe it's only available in some countries. I actually don't see it very much from my own searches, but when my teammates or whatever, when we do see it, we like to share what we're seeing. But the way that you have little filter bubbles under Google searches, that's where perspectives will appear. So you can say, what's the best iPhone app for whatever? And it'll give you the perspectives tab. You go there and it's all creator content, like what you were saying. So it's YouTube Shorts, it's Reddit posts, it's Quora, it's people's blogs, it's anybody else that's doing video content. I would imagine TikTok is there, but I'm not sure how much Google is pushing TikTok videos. I think probably, but for example, like with Google Discover, they often put short videos, and then it's almost always YouTube Shorts and not TikTok Shorts. But I'm sure there's TikTok in perspectives as well. So I agree with you. I actually think this is the most exciting development on Google this year, because it's going in this other direction that Google's been going in. Like, yes, they're so focused on AI and everything like this, but if you read between the lines and you look at what Google's been doing for the past even 15 years, they're very focused on knowing who people are and knowing what they're experts in. There's been all kinds of different tests and experiments and SERP features where Google has shown, like, I know this person, like they're in the knowledge graph, or I know that they're an author, or I know that they're a chef, or whatever it is. I know they wrote these books and these songs and this, and they're an expert on these topics. Like just recently with me, with my own knowledge panel, it says I'm a musician, but in the last month, it started to say knows about search engine optimization. So it's like building these knowledge graphs about individual people. So I would imagine that perspectives layers on top of this, because it's like, if you asked a question about cooking, they know which chefs to look at for the different perspectives. So for people like recipe bloggers who are panicking about what Google's up to, this to me seems like this is exciting. This is something where we get to like keep getting this authentic, like real people providing real experience in Google search. And I truly hope they go further with it. And I hope they make it more visible on more searches.
Okay, so what would be your advice to SEOs and content marketers to prepare or leverage this new feature?
Yeah, it's depending on who you ask, it's actually a really exciting part of search. It's much more than search. It's really personal branding, and or highlighting the experts that work at your company. So one thing that those of us like my team and I who are very focused on EEAT driven SEO. One thing we always talk about, and we have been talking about, is leveraging the experts that work at your company and doing more marketing with them, making them more visible, giving them profile pages, doing conferences and podcasts and interviews and videos with them. So that this is an extension of that. Like if you have a dietitian on your staff who has opinions, hopefully they do, if they work in the field and they actually know what they're talking about, you need to get them on video talking about those opinions, or you need to do an interview with them or have them answer questions. Like I was just looking at a major health site who's starting to introduce perspectives of people who have certain medical conditions or people who do follow certain diets, like directly in the results. This is what Google's looking for with perspectives. It's also a big component of EEAT. So I think it's exciting, but again, people who don't want to reveal their names or say who's behind the brand, maybe because they're hiding something, it's not going to be as exciting for them.
Yeah, and the first thought that comes to my mind, let's say you're a bank and New York, all crusty, stuffy, and has all these things around regulation of what you can say, you cannot say. So I don't see them doing a TikTok video or a YouTube video that is going to be a little bit raw and not so produced. So I wonder how will those highly produced, highly scripted, whether videos or piece of content will do under something like this? Because my read is perspectives to give the searcher like a first person experience. So somebody that did that or something related or has knowledge in something that the searcher is looking for. But to make it genuine, it has to be genuine. So, but if you're a very corporate brand with very strict guidelines, how can we reconcile those things? Or how can they really go about this? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here with you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think I don't know that perspectives will always trigger for certain queries. I think Google's shown time and time again that it's very cautious with who gets to appear for certain queries. So again, I don't know, but I imagine that if you say, what's the tax deadline for filing taxes in New York or whatever, something that like could potentially get, that's a bad example, but something that could potentially get perspectives of different CPAs, like tax professionals, or perspectives of different doctors when you're talking about how to prevent heart attacks. Like, I don't think that they're going to show perspectives for those queries. You're probably going to be just in the traditional search results with all the places that Google highlights like authoritative results. But, I think that brands, even banks, should be thinking about what content formats are resonating with their audiences. And just because you're an old stuffy bank doesn't mean that you don't have a lot of customers who are watching YouTube Shorts and TikTok. It's not just children anymore. It's like a lot of people are on these platforms, and as they get older and they're choosing a bank, you want to have a good reputation on there. So just because you're a bank doesn't mean that you can't find a way to have a social strategy that's fun and engaging and helps people learn about banking. Like, why not, So I think that brands need to get a little bit creative, even if that's something that's unusual or new for them.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with you that they should need find a way to be more genuine and a little bit not raw. I don't know if that's the right word, but just being closer to the customer. It seems like there's real people here working on things like that. So I think we might see some innovative big brands that are willing to do that, and some others are going to be left in the dust, unfortunately. So I want to talk. So you mentioned socials, and we haven't talked much about socials, but what I want to ask you about this is because I see there's a huge risk for SEOs to have all their content X in the search basket. So what we've been talking internally and with clients is you should start diversifying your because at the end of the day, people will just want traffic for different reasons. But a lot of them, they want to monetize that traffic in a way or the other. But when I say diversifying, you need to get under the Google shadow a little bit. And even if it is Discover, YouTube, all is still Google, but leveraging LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, or any other channel that is going to help you bring that traffic. And on top of that, having your own audience, having a newsletter. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on this, because I think a more comprehensive content strategy is worth, especially now, given everything that is happening with AI. Yeah. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the most volatile and unpredictable moments in social media that we've had, right, in a long time. I think obviously what's happening with Twitter rebranding to X and all the other things that are happening there, the launch of Threads and just TikTok's growth and everything like this. I mean, TikTok is a bit of like there's a lot going on TikTok that's hard to attribute. Like, it's hard to keep track of what's happening. Like, for example, if you talk to a lot of people in the SEO space about trends, there will be some big change in traffic or change in search behavior, and people forget that TikTok is the reason behind it. They forget to even look there, right? I've been at SEO conferences lately where everyone's like, what happened on March 14th with this keyword? And it's like, oh, it went viral on TikTok, right? People aren't thinking about that. So they all play together, and it's a challenging time for brands right now, because even myself, like I use Twitter for everything, and now I'm like, am I supposed to like tweet the same thing? What's it called? Zeet? Like, what, with an X? I don't even know how to say it out loud. I'm afraid to say it out loud. I feel like I'm gonna say something inappropriate. But yeah, am I supposed to do that on Threads? Am I supposed to do that on LinkedIn? It's confusing. So I think I would say try to have a cohesive brand voice, try to have, like, you know, kind of a personality with your brand, try to be in the places where it matters most to you from a business and audience perspective. I've shifted a lot to LinkedIn recently for that reason. But it's tricky. Don't just produce stuff for the sake of producing stuff. Like, try to have a cohesive strategy. And then also, like, if you're doing something for TikTok, try to repurpose it for YouTube Shorts and things like that.
Yeah, on that note, I wanted to ask your opinion on, is there a risk to recycling your content? So we personally do it in our brand. So we have a blog, and then we repurpose it for LinkedIn with a carousel, and then we do a Twitter thread. But it's the same message. It's just different format, really. Is there a risk that, you know, Google will say, well, you're just saying the same everywhere. We're actually not going to show those results because you're plagiarizing yourself? I don't know.
Nah, I don't think so. Nah, because it's like, I think if anything, it shows Google you're the same brand doing the same things. You know, like those types of posts are usually not really like an SEO play anyway. Like, you might see LinkedIn posts appearing in Google search, but if you are concerned about duplicate content in that sense, like, let's say you're posting a blog article on your brand's website, and then I wouldn't take the blog article verbatim and go to LinkedIn and post it there. Because then you might see something where, like, a LinkedIn page outranks your blog article. That can totally happen. But I wouldn't be too concerned about, like, having the same message across different places. The only thing I'd look out for is, and this is something I'm concerned about too, is like, do I just copy paste my tweets and put them in Threads? Because then I have friends that follow me in both places, and it's like, God, shut up. You know, it's like, I already read that. So I don't know the answer to that. We have a social media team. They can probably answer that better than me, but that's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. My team is telling me, like, you seem like you post 1,000 times. Yeah, I only posted 5 times. They hear so much of you.
One button, like, boop. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Let me take a couple of things from the audience here, because I don't want to let them unanswered. So Sarah is saying that, you know, perspectives is scary a little bit. So yeah, I agree with that, because it is kind of a new thing. New things can be scary. Chris Rich, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm butchering your last name, but what will SGE do for Google business profiles? Do you have anything?
Yep. Yeah. That's one area of SGE that is, I mean, here's the thing. If you're a local business, SGE can't replace you, right? Like, if anything, it's just gonna, like, channel more people to your business, hopefully. So this is, to me, one of the most, like, redundant ways that Google is using SGE. So what I mean by that is you'll say best coffee shops in Brooklyn, and SGE will give you, it's a big, beautiful, like, result that sorts coffee shops in a different way than Google Business Profile or Google Maps. But then below it, you get Google Maps. So we, in the local SEO world, have this like kind of vague understanding of what it takes to rank in Google Maps, right? We know about proximity, we know about keyword usage, we know about reviews, all these things. SGE seems to be, in some cases, calculating things slightly differently. And what I mean by that is that sometimes if you say best coffee shops in Brooklyn, it's going to use a combination of what it knows from Google Maps. And in some cases, it'll actually use the Google Business Profile URL as the source of the information that it's getting it from, but it's also going to bring in this extra layer of what people have said around the internet. So if there's like the Infatuation or TripAdvisor or something, and they're saying these are the best coffee shops in Brooklyn, that's like a vote that counts towards how SGE ranks those businesses. But the good news for businesses is that from what I've seen so far, it only ever links to the Google Business Profile page. So basically, if you're a coffee shop in Brooklyn and you've been voted by SGE and Google Maps as something worth ranking on page 1, you get the SGE link to your Google Business Profile and then the one below it in Google Maps as well. So now you have twice as much visibility.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. And Chris is also asking, do you think GBP reviews pull into perspectives? And I think that's a genius.
Yes, yes, they do.
Okay.
Perspectives, wait, perspectives, no. I haven't seen that. I'm sorry, I'm getting it all mixed up. I've seen it pulled into search generative experience, big time. So like if you say, who is AMSIF Digital? That's our agency. It'll give SGE information about our agency, and at the bottom, it'll have little like testimonials, and all those testimonials are pulled directly from Google Business Profile. So even if you're not doing like a local search, if it's pulling up information about a brand, it can often pull in Google Business Profile reviews directly in SGE. As far as perspectives, I haven't seen Google Business Profile reviews there. Doesn't mean that it's not possible, but I usually see something that's more of a URL-based review. Like I don't know that Google would pull in an individual review because it doesn't have its own URL. Does that make sense? You know, it's part of like a business profile, so it's possible, but I just haven't seen that yet.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, hopefully, Chris, that helps give some color to your question. Amanda is asking, how can we be proactive when it comes to SGE and how it could potentially impact website traffic? I know we have talked a little bit about it, but it would be good to kind of go back to this question.
Yeah, it's a fun question. I just recently did a number of talks about this, and if you go to the AMSIF blog, I have a blog that I shared with some examples of how I've been playing with this a little bit. So it's possible. It's possible to influence what appears in SGE and BingChat. And my little experiment that I did was that I took a handful of questions about me that are like random questions that haven't really been like either asked or answered before online. And this is just kind of for the experiment. And I put the question and the answer directly on my personal website on a brand new page. And basically like, you know, let it sit, went to Search Console. I think I requested indexing on the page or something like that. But like within 3 or 4 days, I was asking Bing Chat those questions verbatim, and it was showing me exactly the answer from my page from Bing Chat. Google took a little bit longer. Google probably took like 5 days, and it wasn't as reliable. Bing Chat almost always gets the exact answer from the page that I created. Google SGE will sometimes get it, sometimes won't. I think that SGE is a little more cautious with answering questions about individuals. So sometimes it just doesn't have an AI result at all. But it actually does sometimes pull in the answer. It's a very nice answer. It shows the picture of the page that I created, which has like a thumbnail of my face. So it looks very like controlled. And the only problem is sometimes it gets things completely wrong. Like I had one question about my dog. My dog's named Marcy. She's right over here. And I said on my website, my dog is 7 years old. Her name is Marcy. Then I asked, how old is Lily Ray's dog? And it said, Lily Ray's dog is named Marcy. She's 76 years old. So it's like, there was some other Marcy somewhere that's named 76. So like it gets things a little wrong. But the more clues and signs that you have that point to like one piece of information. So if you're using multiple different websites to like corroborate the fact, I think that you can absolutely influence what gets displayed there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But how about when you're producing informational, like top of the funnel informational content, right? That is not so particular about you, but you're talking about a topic. So how can we think about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would look at what sites SGE is linking to for the questions that you care about. One thing that's really interesting is that it's not always pulling from the top, let's say 5 results for the query. Sometimes it'll pull information from like the page that's ranking 48 for the query. So that's for me a big clue. Like, why would it skip so many results and take information from page, the number 48 ranking page? It often has to do with how the content is structured. So like if that page has the exact phrasing or wording that the person typed in, it might be more likely to pick up the answer from that phrase, from that page. I'm a little bit like philosophically opposed to this idea because it seems like SGE is just looking for exact match wording in some cases and not thinking about what it took for all those sites to rank in the top 5 positions in the first place, like trustworthiness, EAT, all this stuff, it's like skipping over all of that. So sometimes you get weird answers, but pay attention to who it's linking to and how their content is structured, because I think that that can actually influence what gets pulled in.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think personally, from more end, I think this will be a game changer. It's hard to know what it will look like until kind of it stabilizes and kind of the dust settles. I think the next 12 to 18 months are going to be very tumultuous, as the last 8 or 9 have been. So the only thing that we can think, we internally think about it, okay, let's diversify our channels. Let's diversify our strategy more from just kind of SEO content. And I just quoted because I don't think that's a thing. But like the SEO focused content, and just diversified to socials and video and all that stuff, just in preparation, because since we don't know, we better be putting bets in different channels to make sure we don't lose all of our traffic, because SEO is taking now all the traffic, no attribution and things like that. So that's what we're doing on our end. But your insights are really, really helpful, Lily. Let me see what I think I want to go back to Bing and Bing adoption. I think maybe this is a little bit more philosophical discussion. I think with Google still can get away with many things is because they own the internet and they have owned it forever. So for humans, it's very hard to change habits. Even the change from going from the Google box to SGE is going to be a big challenge in terms of adoption. That doesn't happen overnight. So we might not see everybody just flocking, going to SGE overnight. It probably might happen with time, and that's why Bing hasn't been able to scratch a lot of market share from Google. Not because their product is not better or is not good. It's just because just the habit is so hard to break. And I think also as SEOs are so in this world that sometimes we forget that 99% of people don't even know what wouldn't understand this conversation because it might be too technical. So I don't know if you have maybe I'm just ranting here out loud, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I do, because if SGE rolls out in its current form the way that it is for the beta testers, you can't escape it. It's going to take up your whole screen anytime you do a Google search. Not anytime. There's certain queries where it doesn't get triggered, and then there's other queries where it asks if you want an AI-driven result. So in those cases, you press the button and it appears. More than 50% of the time that it does get triggered, it happens automatically. And it takes maybe up to 5 seconds, and it loads and it pushes everything else down. So you can't escape it, really. I don't know that there's going to be an opt-out button, but I think, again, we don't know what this product's going to look like when it's more done, but I think it would be wise for Google to give people the option, maybe. Like, the second option where it says, like, I would like to see an AI generated search or result for this search. I think it would be cool to give people that option and like kind of see how they like it. But of course, I'm biased and I don't know if the average user is actually going to click that thing, but I think it's better for brands that way. If you're Virgin Airlines, like, does Virgin Airlines really want an SGE result pushing down their site? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we'll have to see how things evolve. I'm going to take the last question from the audience. And Mika is asking, there was a new article on the New York Times about safety controls of ChatGPT and other chat boxes, more specifically on the spread of misinformation. What are your thoughts on these and how to avoid pitfalls?
Interesting. Hi, Mika, my friend. I actually haven't read that yet, so I don't know the exact answer, but it doesn't surprise me at all. This has been my concern from the start. And again, I haven't read the article, but from what I can deduce from what you said, like, and what we were talking about before, if 10% of the information is slightly wrong, and most people don't know that, Like I think there's been a lot of surveys recently where people, including with SGE, you ask people if they think it's cool. And it's like, yeah, this is super cool. It's great. I really like it. I think I prefer ChatGPT to Google. And it's like, they don't know how much what they're reading is slightly wrong unless they're experts in that topic. So when you start to ask SEO questions, it's laughable because it's so wrong. But like the average person would never know that. So is that the case for every category? Is it always slightly wrong? And now we're having people mass auto-generate content using ChatGPT, just willy-nilly, like publishing 100,000 articles a day. Like I've literally had companies come to us in the last few weeks. Oh, we published 100,000 articles on ChatGPT and our rankings are going down. I'm like, yeah, wonder why.
I wonder, yeah.
So doesn't surprise me that when you publish 100,000 articles a day, that there's misinformation circulating on the internet. It's scary. It's going to be happening on very large scale. Yeah.
Yes, because like I said before, now everybody has this content machine gun called ChatGPT and all the other things that are popping up every day. And yeah, that's scary and dangerous. So hopefully the best and its most exceptional content surface to the top and people still get the information they want. But yeah, there's going to be it's going to get interesting over the next few months. So with that, the last question, Lily, what are your favorite AI tools today?
I would say I'm really enjoying Claude. Claude is super awesome. They, I guess, like updated it last week. It allows you to put up to 5 files, like upload up to 5 files. That includes PDFs and Excel files or text files or CSVs or whatever. And it does a lot with them. If you just give it a raw CSV file and say, what do you see on this file? It'll give you all kinds of insights. But of course, if you have a better prompt, it gives you better insights. You could also put like 3 PDF files and say, compare these 3 files, tell me what's on one, that's not on 2, or how to improve them or whatever it is. But you can put Google's search quality guidelines or like any document on the internet. You just save it as a PDF, and that's revolutionary. It's super awesome.
That's very cool. Well, Claude, so I'm gonna have to check it out, and maybe our audience will.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Lily, I think we're close to the end of the hour, but as always, it's an amazing pleasure talking to you and getting some of your insights and your opinions on everything that is going on. This is a very exciting time. So we look forward to hearing more of you. You're going to be in Moss, speaking in Moss. I'm going to be at Moss. So Crowd Content is going to be at awesome. Moss. We're a sponsor, so come say hi, please. We also have a wine tasting event that day.
We do, yeah. Monday evening.
Friends of AMSIF. So if you like free wine, I think we still might have a few spots on the wait list. So feel free to sign up. Again, Lily Ray, Director of SEO at AMSIF Digital. I'm Carlos Mesa, CEO of Crowd Content. And if you are interested in creating exceptional content at a scale with high quality EEAT, please give us a call and reach out. Lily, thank you very much. And thank everybody in the audience.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.